Welcome to Holly's Pandorium, featuring your host, psychic medium Holly Jordan.
Hello, this is Holly from Holly's Pandorium, and I am so excited I get to hang out and share with you one of my dear friends, Kari. Hello, Kari.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here, and we're going to talk about some really cool ghost stories, and you will love these guys. I cannot wait to hear the feedback on this. Kari has got some cool stories. I've heard them, and I don't mind hearing them 100 times because I love them. They're wonderful. So, Kari, I don't know which story you want to start with because I love all your stories, but go ahead and give us a surrounding environment. Your first, I guess we should start with your first big one.
So yeah, I think so. We'll start at the beginning.
Okay.
So my mom and I grew up in California at the coast, and my mom and I had rented a very small house. It was probably 1,000 square feet. It was old. It was built in this was in the 70s, and it was built in the 40s, 1946. And my mom worked, and I was a latchkey kid, as many of us of a certain age were. We came home and our parents were at work. And I would come home usually, this is middle school, junior high to high school, and I would make myself some food. I would watch TV, do homework, whatever. When we moved into this house, the landlord very kindly allowed us to use some of the furniture from, that he had in storage in the garage. There was a wardrobe that was very beat up, and my mom really liked the wardrobe. I mean, it was very pretty, but really it wasn't in any good condition to use as a wardrobe anymore. And the doors, the double doors on it, were old mirrors.
Right.
And so she took one of the doors off and she hung it horizontally in the kitchen so that when one was standing at the counter, you could look up into the mirror and see behind you.
Right. Sure.
I don't think she thought about that necessarily as being important. She just liked the aesthetic of this very old leaded mirror, hanging up in our very old kitchen.
Right.
So at this counter, I would make a sandwich or whatever, and I could see behind me. And we hadn't lived there very long, I don't think. And came home from school, making some food, and I look up into the mirror, and behind me, maybe 10 feet, maybe 8 to 10 feet behind me, I can see a woman with long dark hair. And and I thought, well, who's in the house? And I turned around and there was nobody there.
And Kari, let me stop you really quick. How old were you when this happened?
I want to say I was between 10 and 12-ish years old, because I think we moved into the house in like 1975, which would make me about 11 years old.
Okay.
So I will say 11 or 12.
And this was during the day. Yes.
This was during the day. This was broad daylight. This would have been about 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
And, very bright outside, California, sunshine.
Right.
There's, this is daytime. This is not midnight.
Right. I just wanted to bring that up because that's important.
It is important. Yeah. Yes. So this is daytime. So, that's really startling to see somebody behind you and be in the house by yourself.
Exactly.
And I was very startled. I wouldn't say that I was afraid, but I was very, very, I was, like, oh, what is happening? And of course I went to the corner and there was nobody there. And I looked down the hallway and around, and of course the front door was closed. So there was nobody in the house. There was nobody in the house.
That would have been scary though, at any age, to think I don't care how old you are. When you're in a house by yourself, and you're expecting no one, and you're there doing whatever it is you're doing, and just to glance in a mirror and whoa, there's a person,
It was
then
like,
turn around and look and
it,
nobody's there, that would be weird.
it was
That's just,
very
yeah.
unsettling,
Yes, of course. Of course.
Um, and so I read a lot, I had a vivid imagination. I was like, this is all just made up. I'm sure that
Yeah.
it was not actually a person. I'm sure my brain is just, this is not a real thing.
Right.
And it wasn't much longer after that, that it happened again.
Wow.
And same kind of situation. It's after school. It's about 3:00, maybe 3:30 in the afternoon. It's broad daylight. I'm, in the kitchen doing my thing. And I look in the mirror. I can see someone 8 to 10 feet behind me. And I turn around and there's nobody there. Now,
did you see a face? Did you see details?
she did not,
what did it look like? Whatever it was that you saw, what did you see?
she did not have features
Okay.
that were clearly defined.
Okay.
Yes, she had a face. There was a place for eyes and a mouth, but it was like filtered, heavily
Okay.
filtered.
Okay.
So
Okay.
she didn't have a distinct, like I am looking at you.
Okay.
Right? It wasn't like a photograph or a video.
Okay.
And she was like hazy,
Oh, okay.
for lack of a, but
Now,
not
had you said anything
transparent.
to your mom? Okay. Did you say anything to your mom?
I didn't.
Okay.
I was kind of uncomfortable saying anything. I didn't really think that she would
No, I
believe
get it.
me.
Right.
And the second time it happened, I did kind of run down the hallway to see what was happening, and it was very unsettling. I won't say that I
Okay.
was afraid, but I was definitely uncomfortable.
Right.
Um,
Rightfully
and
so.
being 12-ish, 11, 12-ish, yeah.
Right.
And this happened repeatedly. So over the course of the time that we lived there, and I lived in that house until I was 18 years old. So
Okay.
this is a long period of time.
Yes. Okay.
It happened repeatedly. But that first year, those first few months that it happened, I got to the point where I never felt in danger. I never felt menaced.
Good.
I didn't feel any negative energy like that. It was just as if someone was checking in.
Okay.
Why
So
are
what
you
about
in my
nighttime?
space?
Right. So what
Yeah,
about nighttime? Did you experience things at night?
I did. But mostly those were noises, like creaking footsteps, not anything that was that I ever physically saw,
Oh,
just
okay.
things that more auditory, things that I could hear. But
Okay.
remember, it's a house at the beach in 1946. And
Sure.
so, it was that old.
Right.
So, hard to say if it was the wind or the house settling. I'm still trying to be very, skeptical about
Right.
everything.
Right.
But I knew that she was there, and I saw her many, many, many times. I tried to catch her many, many times, tried to, like follow her really fast.
Really?
One time I got very close to catching her by shooting down the hallway, and I saw her go into the bedroom, or I saw the shadow of her go into the bedroom.
Okay.
She was not transparent, but she wasn't fully substantial like you and I
Okay.
are substantial. Okay. She definitely had form.
Okay.
Not a mist.
Okay.
Right? Not a mist like that.
Okay.
As far as clothing, she had like, daytime clothing that you might wear when you're cleaning the house. We're not talking about your typical Victorian ghost. That wasn't it at all.
Right.
This was just a woman who had her hair down, who had some dark clothing on that was kind of nondescript. Once again, I say there weren't a lot of details to her, except for she was very fair skinned.
Okay.
And she had very dark hair.
Okay. And then I just have to ask, so if she was a ghost from what time era, what would you guess she was from? I mean,
I would,
you kind of learned since that time, but when you
I
first
did.
looked at her, let's go backwards a little bit. So
Yeah,
when you first noticed her, did it look like she was wearing a dress? Did it look like she was wearing jeans? Did it look like she was wearing pants? I mean, give us
definitely.
some details.
Yeah, definitely wearing a dress.
Oh, okay.
Um, definitely wearing kind of a dark apron over
Okay.
the dress.
Okay.
If you were to picture somebody in the late 30s or early 40s in
Okay.
a dress with an apron cleaning house,
Interesting. Okay.
that is exactly what it would look like, except
I'll
that her
be
hair
darned.
was down and not, pulled back.
Not in but not in a style. So like just straight hanging
Just
down
straight.
kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, just
All
straight
right.
and down. I'm so sorry. My
That's
phone went off. I apologize.
okay.
Um, so I it got to the point where I was very accepting. It was still
Right.
startling. I'm never getting over the startling part
Well,
because
yeah.
in
Clearly.
here, there's somebody there. Um, I was sitting on the sofa in our living room at the same time of day, waiting for my mom to get home and watching, like, you know, afternoon TV, as we did.
Right.
And I was doing homework and very tired. And I remember sitting there and feeling somebody sit on the couch next to me.
Oh boy.
And you could feel like the weight of somebody sitting on the couch. We did not have a dog. We did not have a cat. We did not have, it was just the two of it.
Right.
There was nobody else that could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And just looking and there being nobody there, but knowing that there was somebody there.
Yeah.
Something was there. I
So
feel that it was her.
okay. So when you say you felt something was there, so like you're half asleep, you're on the couch,
Doing homework, kind of like,
chilling out.
chilling
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
And so it sounds to me like you kind of got used to her being there on occasion.
Yes.
So you weren't really scared anymore. You were still startled because obviously she didn't announce herself and say,
Correct.
"Hey, I'm coming here to visit you right now." So
Right.
there was a little bit of start, but you had learned that she didn't seem to want you any harm.
She did
She didn't
not.
seem to
But
want to scare you. It
no,
seems like she just wanted to be in the room,
just
so to
checking
speak.
things out. Who's in my house, what's
Yeah.
happening.
Right.
I really felt like she had a possessiveness about the space. This was definitely her space. And
Okay.
why are you here? But not in
Okay.
a mean way or a menacing way or
Right.
harmful way. Just, what's happening? Why are you here?
Right. Right.
Um,
Then
my
what happened?
so then, my mom and I were doing laundry, and she was sorting clothing, and she pulled out this long black hair out of our clothing. We're both light haired, we don't
Right.
have any dark hair. And she was very startled. Where did this come from? And I said,
Right.
well, this is kind of when I told her, I think I know. And she thought I was like making it up and
Of
making up a
course.
story. And I was like, no, it is real. We have a ghost. We have a presence in our house. So my mom had this experience with somebody, sitting next to her on the sofa, and she was very uncomfortable with it. And she shared it with me. She felt that it was a woman with dark hair. So it kind of, validated what I had said about the long dark hair, and we have a ghost, and this is who it is. So very much after that, quite some time after that, we found out that the landlord, the owner of that home, his first wife had died. And I can't say for sure that she died in that house, but
Right.
she died at a younger age
Okay.
while they were living in the house together
Okay.
before he turned it into a rental before he bought
Okay,
something else and turned it into a rental.
and how did you find that out?
So my mom knew that information and had not shared it with me until much later. And
Funny.
I think she just didn't want to feed into we have a ghost in the house.
Right, of course.
Being the adult in the room, she was not going to feed into that. But later she did tell me. And this woman did not have, there was no drama. It was not a violent death or a suicide or anything like that. It was just an untimely passing.
Right, of course.
And I think that is why she hung out in the house. She was younger and, probably hadn't been ready to make the crossing over, never was menacing, never was harmful, never did anything like that. But that was my first real experience with a spirit.
Now, did anyone else see her? Did any of your friends ever see her, or any other relatives or neighbors?
No, none of the neighbors or any friends saw her. My mom was the only other one that experienced it. And as far as I know, she never saw her the way I saw her.
Right.
But she did experience the presence. Yeah.
Right.
But I don't believe she ever saw her in physical
form. Did you
form.
ever tell any friends about her?
Of course I did. I was like, we have a ghost.
And how old were you when you finally did that?
Now I'm a little older. I'm probably 14 or 15, and it's very exciting to be able to say our house is haunted. You have your friends come over for a slumber party, and be like, our house is haunted. We have a ghost.
Our house is so cool. It's haunted.
Yes, yeah. Get the Ouija board out and scare ourselves to death with it. Right. Which is another story for another day, obviously.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So that was really my first real experience, I think, with it wasn't my first experience with the supernatural, but it was my first experience with a ghostly presence.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I moved out of that house when I was about 18, and I continued to have experiences in different places where I've lived. It doesn't seem to matter where I live. If it's a brand new house or an old house.
Right.
There's always something around. Yeah.
Right. Now, there was a very special ghost experience that you had, I believe, with a boyfriend.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So tell us about that.
We had, so, I was about 19 or 20 when we moved. We moved from Central California coast to Northern California and to go to college. And we had this little apartment, and I was like, now I'm more interested in the supernatural and the paranormal. Sure. This is something that I've been, and now I'm more interested. I'm in my early 20s. And he is very skeptical. No such thing, doesn't exist, absolutely does not believe. Funny. And I'm like, you're mistaken.
Right.
And we had many discussions about how I was imagining things and it wasn't real. And, I was like, I'm telling you, this is a thing that really happened. He says, well, I believe it really happened to you, but I don't believe it's what you think it is.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, all right. So we go to bed and I am asleep and I hear this, I'm going to just say it, blood-curdling scream, yell next to me. And he is sitting straight up in bed. And he is absolutely scared out of his wits.
Oh, wow.
He is absolutely scared. Heart pounding, eyes wide, scared, right?
Right.
And I said, what are you doing? What happened? What's going on? And he says, I was laying here looking at the wall, falling asleep, and a face came right out of the wall.
Woo. Woo-hoo-hoo.
And it obviously terrified him. And I said,
Clearly.
well, welcome to my world.
Yeah, exactly. Hello.
I said, it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
This is a real thing. And I don't know that I don't know that he was completely convinced that it was actually a spectral happening or anything like that.
Right.
But he was definitely more patient then.
Right.
And a
But
little,
honestly, Kari, I've heard this many, many, many times, and I understand it completely
Mhm.
because until you see something, it's hard to just listen to a story that sounds fantastic. It
Yeah.
sounds unbelievable and think
Yes.
that it could be real
Yeah.
because we grow up and we're told none of that stuff is real. If
Correct.
you can't touch it, if you can't taste it, if you can't feel it, it must not be a real thing.
Correct.
And that's a real neat box to put everything in that the world does not really fit in. And I definitely believe that the spirit world is much larger than the physical world we live in.
Oh yeah.
And I do believe that. But that's my experience. And so I totally understand. I totally get it that people
Mhm.
have a reluctance to believe in anything
Mhm.
because they haven't seen it. But I genuinely hope that people that are skeptics try to be open minded and understand that just because they have not seen it doesn't mean it's not real for others.
Exactly. I haven't walked on the face of the moon, but I know the moon is there,
Right,
you
right,
know, and
exactly.
I see it in the sky. I know that it's there. It's a real thing.
Right.
Um, and I've run into that my whole life.
Yeah, I
People
bet.
saying I have an overactive imagination,
Yeah,
or when I was younger, oh, well, you're just doing it for attention. And it's like, no, I'm really not. This is real. These are real things. These are real things that really happened. And I
right,
really believe that they are ghostly. And, maybe they choose to be here. Maybe they're stuck. I don't know. I don't know the
right,
answers to that. Uh,
right.
Probably one of the experiences that I had that was truly moving and emotional for me is when we moved from Vancouver, Washington to Depot Bay, Oregon.
Okay.
And I had my daughter and my son, and my daughter would have been 3, and my son would have been a year old. And if we go back to just before we moved to the coast, about a year before we moved to the coast, um, their grandfather had passed away unexpectedly.
I'm sorry.
He had died on Christmas Eve,
Oh my.
away from home.
Right.
He was a long haul truck driver, and he had a problem with the truck, and he had pulled over. And while he was messing with the truck, he slipped in the ice and snow, and he broke
Oh,
his ankle, or he broke his leg right above the ankle. And
ouch.
um, you know, managed to get himself in the truck and drive himself to a hospital, which is, I can't even imagine,
Incredible. That had to
incredible
hurt.
to do. But what else he's
What do
like
you
on
do though?
the pass in the snow,
Right.
and what do
Right.
you do? Um, and that unfortunate accident led to his death because he had a blood clot that he didn't know about, which
Oh,
actually that was the cause of his death, was a blood clot that
wow.
broke loose and killed him. So on Christmas Eve, he was in Arizona visiting family with his wife, with grandma, and he had said, "I don't feel very well," and they had gone to the emergency room,
And
and
this was after that incident?
this is after the incident. So he has a
Okay.
cast on his leg. This is about
Okay.
3 or 4 weeks after he
Okay.
broke his leg.
Okay.
They had gone to the ED, and they were like, "You have a virus. You're there's nothing we can do really. Drink fluids, rest." And they went back, and they were going to sleep, and because Grandma woke up to go to the bathroom, and she was trying to be super quiet so as not to wake him up. And he woke up
Right.
anyway. And she said, "I'm just going to the bathroom. I'll be right back." And he said, "Okay." And she came back, and he had passed away. I mean,
Oh,
literally within like moments. You know,
my
how long does it take
goodness.
you to get up and go potty and then come back, right? It's just a
Right.
few
Right.
minutes. So that was Christmas Eve.
Okay.
And that was in, um,
How old was he then, Kari, do you think?
oh gosh, he was probably not much older than I am now,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
because this was almost 30 years ago.
So his
Yeah.
50s?
In his
Yeah.
late 50s, early 60s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. All right.
So, you know,
Right.
youngish, you know,
Right. Sure.
to pass away. So a year after this event, we moved. We moved from Vancouver to Depot Bay.
Okay.
And my husband, the kids' dad at that time, was working for a company out of the Gulf of Mexico where he would, he was on a tugboat, and they would
Oh,
tow the oil drills around the Gulf of Mexico.
okay.
He'd
Wow.
be gone for 6 to 8 weeks at a time.
Sure.
And it was a new job for me, and a new town, and new everything. And
Sure.
I was working at a skilled nursing home as
Mhm.
a discharge planner, case manager. And one of the nurses very, very graciously invited us to her home because she knew that my husband was gone.
Right.
And they
That was
wouldn't be
nice.
home in time for Christmas. And she knew we
Sure.
were new in town. So I want you, if you've ever driven from Depot Bay to Lincoln City,
I have.
and it is Christmas Eve,
Right.
and it is dark. There are no lights out there. It is just dark on the highway.
Okay, so
Um,
let's stop for just a quick second because we
yeah,
have listeners that have never been in the area. So
right.
try and explain what it looks like.
So you are actually driving right along the beach. This is 101,
Highway 101.
Highway 101, and it's pretty curvy. And you're
Very.
coming from Depot Bay. You're going through Siletz Bay, which is kind of marshy, and
Right.
there's really not a lot of street lights, you know, shining on this part
They're
of the
very
highway.
far apart. They're
It's
spread
very, very
very
far
far
apart.
apart.
Yes. And it's also very isolated. Remember, this was almost, you know, this is like 23 years ago, you know.
Well, and if for anybody that's never lived near the ocean, there's no lights on the water, guys.
There
So
are
it's
not.
extra dark.
It is
So normally
extra,
in a
extra dark.
neighborhood or off of a freeway or highway, there's an ambient glow from housing or businesses that you
Correct.
don't have at the ocean. So on one side of the freeway,
Is the
of the
ocean.
highway, is the ocean, and the other side is some housing. So you have like a little bit of light, but not much. So
Not
unless the
much.
moon is really bright and low, you
Then
don't
you might.
see much of anything. Yeah.
Right. And from Depot Bay to Lincoln City, there's only a few areas at this time that we lived there where there
Right.
was housing. So even
Right.
on this side of the road, on the land side of the road, it's
Right.
still pretty dark.
Yes.
And we're driving, and my daughter, who was 3 or just about 3, her birthday's in January, so she was not quite 3.
Yeah.
And she says to me, Grandpa Jack has a cast on his leg. And I said, yes, that's right. Grandpa Jack did have a cast on his leg. That's right.
And how old was she?
She was, at the time of the accident, and when he died, she would have been 2. This is a whole year. So she would have been almost 2. Because now
when he died, how old was she?
When he died, am I saying that right? She was almost 2 when he died. She was almost 3 at the time she's telling me the story.
Okay.
Because of because her birthday is so close to Christmas.
Yeah.
So Grandpa Jack has a cast on his leg, and I'm like, yep, he does. He did have a cast on his leg.
Right.
And then she says, Grandpa Jack says hi.
Oh boy.
And I said, And I don't know
Well,
where it came from, but I said, "You tell Grandpa Jack that I say hi too, but could he please stay in the back seat because I am driving."
right. That's enough close proximity for Grandpa Jack.
I'm driving right now and I have to concentrate.
Right. Can you
Um,
imagine him in the front seat adjusting the radio
oh,
station or something?
God. Ah! I would have driven right off into the marsh or the
Yeah, a little bit
broken,
too
a
much. A little
little
bit
too
too
much.
much. Oh boy.
But she continued to kind of have this giggly conversation
I love it.
with him.
Right.
And my son, who's back there now, mind you, he was born in September, so he was a little baby.
He was a baby, baby,
Baby
baby.
baby.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now he's a year old, and yeah. So I can hear them in the back. I don't hear Jack. I don't hear Grandpa
Right.
Jack, but I can hear
Okay.
the kids,
How
having,
incredible.
yeah. So, and it was Christmas Eve. It
Right.
was Christmas Eve. We were going to our friend's house on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And
And so
it had
that was
been
kind of
a
the
year.
anniversary of his passing.
It was
Is
the
that right?
anniversary of his passing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And to me, that was just so moving
Yes.
to have this, like, I don't know. I don't even know the word to call it, but it was kind of like closure in a way.
I think it was very sweet, and I
It
think
was very
it
sweet.
it
Yeah,
feels very loving that he would show up in such a loving way, and number one, not scare the grandkids and not
not at all.
really try to scare you, but to be gentle and just kind of make himself known.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
think that's amazing. I love that.
yeah, it was pretty, it was probably like you said, it was the sweetest. It was a very sweet encounter.
But I appreciate the way you handled it with your daughter, because to me that gives her a window to continue sharing with you. You didn't scold her, you didn't say no you don't or no you're not.
Right.
And that's not easy.
It is
That's
not.
not easy, because
But
you're
it was my
focusing.
first response was to
What?
say,
No.
I,
What?
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I'm okay with that, but he needs to stay back there.
Well, and that's the thing I have to say too. It's when you see a relative or hear a relative or you sense a relative, they're typically not scaring the pants off you. They're not terrorizing you. They're
Right.
there to show you they're okay. And
Right.
they're just there to touch base and say, I'm here and I want you to know I see you and it's all right. You're going to be
Yeah.
okay. They're
Yeah.
usually reaffirming. They're usually very loving and kind when they show up. So I love that. And I think that the holiday season, this is a perfect story for this in particular, because it's not just a kid experiencing something and it's like generational for you. Here you go. Your mom experienced something, you experienced something, and now your daughter's experiencing something.
Yes.
And that's fantastic to me. I
Yeah.
mean, it's wonderful when you can do that. I had an incident I completely forgot about that I just remembered, oddly enough, yesterday. And so I had a mother-in-law that died of cancer, and we were kind of just being supportive, being around her, and had the kids at the house. And we knew it was getting close. And the
Yeah.
night she died, the kids had all gone to bed, and I went in and she had just passed. And so we had to call the numbers that you call and all
Yeah.
that. And so I just went in to kind of check on the kids. And my oldest daughter said, Mom, I saw Grandpa Pat. And I went, You did? And she said, Yeah, he was walking down the driveway to get Grandma. And so what's fantastic about this is she had never met Grandpa Pat.
Oh. Yeah.
He was long gone before she was ever aware of him. He was not, this was a step family situation. And
Mm-hmm.
so this was not someone who there were pictures of all over the house even.
Right.
My
Right.
mother-in-law had bought a home and was putting together this small hobby farm and hadn't done all of her decorating or anything yet. So there weren't any pictures of her husband, Pat, anywhere in the house that my daughter had seen.
Mm-hmm.
So who was Pat? She knew him as Grandpa Pat. Grandpa Pat said, "I'm here to take Grandma home."
That's so incredible.
And I just said, "Wow." And she said, "Yeah." And she rolled over and went back to sleep. And I thought, even if that was a dream, even if she was dreaming,
what a good dream.
That's a great dream.
Yeah.
And she had this really long dirt driveway with gravel, and in a country area of Oregon, in a town called Scio. And I just love that story because what a wonderful story. I actually had contact with my mother, who's passed on. And when my most recent pet was getting ready to pass, and my mom said, "When it's time, I'll come get her." And I thought, as much as I don't want to let her go,
right,
that sounds beautiful to me. Yeah. That sounds beautiful to me. And so, yeah, I love that. I love that connecting of souls. And even for a dog, I mean, good Lord, that seems incredible and fantastic. But
yeah, but
I felt my mom come and get her, and it was like, okay, because letting go is so hard.
It is so hard.
It is so hard.
So difficult. Yeah. I think that anybody who says, well, it's just a dog or it's just a cat, they've never had a dog or a cat then.
Right.
And have experienced that loss.
Right.
Because they really are part of our family. And
well,
it's,
yeah,
they really
but
should.
I also love that your father-in-law came to connect with the grandkids, because that's love too. That's another expression of love, of just being in the room.
Yeah.
And not to scare them, not to haunt them, just to be in the room. And I love that that's a conversation we can have, because I know 30 years ago it would have been completely ridiculous for you and I to be doing this on a broadcast for other people to hear. We would have been in a corner of a living room with our Chardonnay going, remember that time I told you about that? Oh my God. Don't tell anybody. It would have been totally foreboding for us to have this conversation. So I am excited that we can talk about all this.
Yeah, I am too.
I love it. I think it's wonderful.
I think it's wonderful. Love that today and now there's so much more acceptance. And even if they don't fully understand what's happening, there's an acceptance for it. You experienced this thing. It was a real experience.
Right.
And who knows? I really love that. I love that it's so much more open now and so much more mainstream.
Right.
And now when you talk to people, or when I talk to people and say, I had this experience, they say, me too.
And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that people are able to say that, because I thought for a long time it was just me going through stuff. And I am so, so blessed that other people have shared even a 3-second, well, I saw a ghost once, or I think I saw a ghost once, or I heard a ghost once, or I saw one, or my cousin saw one and then I saw it. And it's like, but it's like this, it's not the secret community of crazy anymore. It's everybody, or it's a lot of people, maybe not everybody, but it's a lot of people that are able to say, I think me too. Cause I know from my own experience, I question myself ruthlessly.
Yes.
Did I? Was that a real thing? Doubt and the self-criticism of what did I see? What did I hear? And the micro filtering of going over that thing over and over and over again. And it's like, I know the heck what I saw. I know what I heard. I know what I felt. No, I'm not crazy. I know I didn't imagine that. I was wide awake. It was daylight. And that's why I appreciate the details, because if you're wide awake, you weren't asleep in bed, you weren't dreaming.
No.
You hadn't had mushrooms, you weren't stoned or drunk.
No.
You know,
no.
you're completely sober and it's daylight. Explain that. Thank you. Explain
Yeah.
that. Because these experiences happen all different times of the day, all over the world.
Yeah.
Um,
It
and
doesn't
I,
always happen at midnight in an abandoned house
on Halloween, on
on
Friday the
Halloween.
13th.
Right. Right. This is a thing that really happens in your apartment that is, just a few years old, or,
Right.
the house that's a little bit older, but not exactly, your
Yeah.
150-year-old farmhouse.
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
and definitely
Exactly.
happens in the daytime. Yeah. It
So I
doesn't.
know you have another ghost story from a house,
Yeah. Yeah.
and this one's
So
very different. This
it's
is a different kind of ghost story.
very different and not nearly as friendly. Not
Mm-hmm.
nearly as friendly. This is probably the only time that I was um felt that this kind of presence was not happy.
Okay.
This one was a little more menacing and a little more had ill intent.
Okay.
Maybe
And
not.
and let's set the scene. Where were you? How old were you? Day or
So
night?
I decided we moved from the Oregon coast to upstate New York. And
Okay.
this is not just an hour above New York City. I'm talking upstate New York. This is
Okay.
next to the Canadian border,
Oh wow.
next to Vermont, in St. Lawrence
Okay.
County.
Okay.
So it's definitely away from everything. It's a very, very small town, and I bought a farmhouse that was
Fun.
on an acre, and it was very the deed that I had at the time. It had been completed in the 1860s, in the late 1860s, and so it was genuinely like 150 years old at the
Oh
time.
wow.
And it was a very large house. It had a glassed-in porch that kind of wrapped around kind of halfway around the house.
Nice.
We had a fireplace in the living room. We had a wood stove at the other end of the house, which we used as a family room. And then, upstairs were all the bedrooms. There were 6 bedrooms.
Big
There
house.
was a clawfoot tub in the bathroom. And there was only one bathroom. Just one bathroom.
Of course.
And that bathroom was down the stairs and through the large living room by the fireplace, and then this little bathroom with a cast iron clawfoot tub and a light switch, with the chain.
Okay.
The pull chain.
Okay.
And I would often leave the light on because I had 3 children at this time.
Right.
And my oldest son at the time was 5. So now we are 2, 5, and 8. 2 years old, 5 years old, and 8 years old.
Okay.
And this was in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Kids have to use the bathroom in the middle of the night and it's dark.
Right.
And so my oldest son went down the stairs, went across the living room into the bathroom. He's sitting his little hiney on the toilet, and this is how he explained it to me.
Okay.
He looks up and the light turns off.
Oops.
And it wasn't just that the power was funny because it was an old home.
Right.
It was like somebody turned it off.
Okay.
And he hopped off of that toilet.
I bet.
Ran his little self up the stairs.
Sure he did.
He was very excited. Something happened. And I was like, maybe it's the wiring. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's going to be okay. So it happened to him again. He was, light was on, sitting on the toilet. The light goes off. And the second time he could hear footsteps.
Oh boy.
And he ran I could hear him coming up the stairs and following. He was really, really frightened at that point.
Wow.
And I don't blame him. That is terrifying.
Heck no, that would have scared me.
And of course I, grabbed it and I went downstairs and I flipped all the lights on and I looked all over everywhere and, there was no one in the house. It was, no one at all. And we had a basement also. We had a cellar basement that you got to from the kitchen.
Okay.
And we had an attic as well, old house.
Sure. Right.
So we had a wood stove in the basement because in the winter, we need to keep the pipes from freezing. So we had this wood
Yes.
stove in the basement, and it was small. It was a little Franklin stove,
Okay.
probably about 18 inches long.
Okay.
And maybe
Not very big.
not very big, really tiny, like something you might put in an RV or something.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was an old cast iron stove. And
Okay.
maybe about 14 inches tall, about 18 inches this way. And I would always stoke the fire before I would go to bed and,
Right.
make sure that it would kind of, those, what do they call that when you let the embers,
Yes.
right, would be
Okay.
there, most of
Right.
the night. And I went down into the basement, which had never been a comfortable place.
Okay.
This was not a finished basement. This is a
Okay.
root cellar basement. This is
Okay.
stone floors, partially. You can see the foundation of the home with
Okay.
these great big stones, and it is not friendly.
Okay.
I never was a fan.
Okay. Okay.
So I go down, and the stove, which had no issues and was
Right.
whole and working,
Okay. Right.
now was laying on its side with one of its legs scooted out. It looked exactly like somebody had pushed it or kicked it. And remember,
Okay.
it's cast iron, so it's very heavy.
Yes,
even
very heavy.
Small. Like somebody had moved it and knocked it over with intent, with purpose.
Okay.
Not just, it didn't fall over on its own.
Right.
It absolutely did not.
Okay.
And I got the leg and I put it up under the base of it, and I got it righted up, and I had to reattach, the pipe and everything.
Wow.
Now there's ash everywhere.
Of course.
Fortunately, nothing to set on fire down there because it's just
heavens.
Stone and dirt. There's nothing to catch on fire. And it wasn't long after that the winter really got to us, and I was like, we're going home. we're going back to Oregon. But I really felt that there was a lot of malicious intent in that house directed.
Why do you think that?
I think that the intentional scaring of my son.
Okay.
I think that was really intentional.
Okay.
It wasn't just hey, we're here.
Right.
It was done with purpose.
Gotcha.
That's how it felt. And I can't give any clearer answer than
that's okay. No. That's why I asked, because I think that for you, I want your feelings validated, because I want you to know that you don't have to have evidence. You have to trust your gut.
Yeah. And that really was my gut feeling, is
genuinely. I believe that's as valid as a visual sighting is your gut saying, something's yucky. Yeah. Something's not right.
This is the super ick feeling. This is not okay.
Right.
So, we all moved into one bedroom at that point because the kids were like done with this nonsense. They were not happy.
Right.
And then we moved. Shortly after that, we moved back to.
Well, I don't blame you.
Yeah,
I mean, that sounds
was awful. And I had a Suburban, a 2500 Suburban, this huge car, 9-passenger thing.
Oh yeah, I love those.
Snow was up above the hood of
that's a lot of snow
Suburban on the day that we left. It was like February 26th, and we
boy,
out of there. I'm
right.
done. And we rolled into Central Oregon on March 1st, 2004.
Wow.
So it'll be 20 years next year.
And you haven't moved since.
Nope. We've been in Central Oregon ever since. So
no, I get it. People don't realize the climate is so much milder here. And you have 4 seasons, but it is definitely milder. It's mild snow and the rain's not horrible. The wind is never horrible. Yeah, we do get a tornado once every great while, and they're never that big. But
when we lived in New York, the one night it was negative 48 degrees.
Oh my.
It was colder in our town than it was in Alaska.
Wow.
And you could feel it. If you put your hand on the wall, you could just feel the cold air seeping through. And I was like, yeah,
that's scary.
We're out of here. This is ridiculous. Anyway.
Yeah, that's scary. So you've had quite a few ghost stories. You've had quite a few things that have come across your path in your life.
Yes.
And do you feel like ghosts feel safe around you, or do you feel like you're just okay with ghosts, or do you think it's just a part of your experience in this life, maybe?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that I am definitely more comfortable with the spirit world as an adult.
Yeah.
And I think that because I am more comfortable, they are more comfortable.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
I think that for whatever reason, I have always had this experience. There are other things that have happened when I was very, very young that I had been told about. I don't fully remember all of the details of them, but I have always been this way.
Gotcha.
I've always been this way. And I'm definitely much more accepting now than I was when I was, very young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. They hang around.
Yeah. That's cool. They hang around me too.
Yeah.
And I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm totally good with that. It's just part of my life experience, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just part of who I am and part of my journey on this earth, while I'm here. And man, I am coming back and I'm going to haunt everybody. When the time comes.
Yes.
So,
I think that could be fun. I think not to scare anybody, but just to say hi, to say hello.
Yeah.
And let everybody know that I'm okay and that things are good.
Yeah. Yeah, and everything's okay. Yeah.
Well, just to encourage too. I think that's a good thing.
I think
I've had several ghost stories that have been very sweet, and for little things from turning lights on or off, or changing radio stations, or leaving coins, or finding lost things, or keys being missing on a regular basis.
Yeah. I don't know. Did I share with you that the kids' dad has passed away?
I don't think so.
He passed away in 2011.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And he has, for a long time, he hung around. A long time.
Yeah?
When the kids were, they were 10, 13, and 16 when he passed away. Which is very difficult. It's a very difficult time. It's always hard to lose a parent, but I think that was especially difficult.
Yeah, of course.
And for many years, I knew that he was hanging out. One situation or one experience I had was, how in your kitchen, above the cupboard, there's like a space sometimes.
Yeah, right.
And I used to keep platters up there or large bowls, things that didn't fit in the cupboard.
Right.
And the platters I didn't have them up. I had them laying down, right? Because I didn't want them to fall off of the top of the cupboard.
Sure.
And I was in bed one night. I don't think the kids were home. They must not have been. And the dog was with me. The cat was with me. There were no children home. And I heard this clatter, 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 right? And I got up, and in the kitchen, sure enough, my turkey platter, which, by the way, was an antique, was laying on the counter, not broken. And it had come off of the top shelf, right? Because that's where I had it.
Sure.
Now, the plastic platters that were up there were on the floor. But that turkey platter, the porcelain one, was on the counter.
And not broken.
That's
incredible.
And I know that it was him.
Why do you say that?
I know it was. Because he loved to scare me. So that was his thing. And I remember standing in the kitchen and I said to him,
Oh.
knock it off. Why can't
I
you knock
love it.
over pillows and
Right,
saucers? Why do you have to knock over the dishes?
right.
Knock it off.
The effect.
Yeah.
Much more drama with the noise.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah. I wasn't
That's
sure.
awesome.
I don't think I had shared with you that their father had passed away.
I love that story though. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So he
was a prankster. That makes sense.
He was definitely a prankster. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now that the children have grown up, they're adults, they've moved out, they're doing their own thing. He is not here nearly as much as he used to be. I think he goes.
But that's wonderful.
And that's as it should be.
Right. But I love that he had to just say hi that way that you would know it's him.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, I love that. And I appreciate you sharing all these stories tonight. This has been amazing, Kari. And we're going to have to do this again because we have to go over the Ouija story one of these nights.
Yes. Yes. And
we need to do that.
There's the alien encounter. And
yes, we have to talk about that. And we have several alien stories to share that we're going to combine. Yeah. And then we actually have a fairy episode that we need to do.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've got some super fun fairy stories to share.
That's amazing.
So, yes. So,
and one Bigfoot story. So.
Yes. Yeah, oh boy. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Okay. So we've got lots more coming, and I'm so glad for everyone that joined us to listen to this. Thank you so much. Please like and share. Please tell a friend for me. And thank you again, Kari, for your wonderful help in sharing stories and opening up the conversation of the paranormal. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Holly's Pandorium. If you have stories to share, you can find me on hollyspandorium.com, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also listen on Spotify and our wonderful Metal Cross Radio at radioking.com. Thanks again for listening.